Okay, thank you, Dr. Nap. Dr. Nap will now be taking questions. Again, same thing as a while ago. You can just raise your hand and I'll call you. But before that, meron tayo ng isang nagtanong kanina pa. So I will call on him from the Social Development Research Center, si Mr. Romel Villena. Very interesting question. Sir Romel, nandiyan pa ba kayo? Yan, okay. Very
Hi,
interesting question, no? So, go ahead, Sir
nandito
Romel.
pa.
Go ahead.
Good afternoon, Dr. Mabakeo and the rest of the participants. Hearing about your interest on bioethics, which is a thing that we need to know because in the future we might have some patients who will be taken to the hospital about operation. Now that AI is a globally accepted thing, my question related to bioethics is if an artificial intelligence diagnostic tool makes a treatment recommendation that results in patient harm. My question is, who bears the legal and moral responsibility? Is it the physician who trusted it, the biomedical engineers who coded it, or the hospital that deployed it? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very
Thank you.
much, Romel. No? Good to see you. Okay.
Yeah.
By the way, no, again, that's a good example of we can do research on existing policies. No? Right now, our existing policy in the Philippines now for cadaveric organ donation is the opt-in system. So we are operating under the opt-in system. But there are proposals now from Congress and Senate. They're saying that it's better for us to shift to the opt-out system. And there are debates on this, and there are ethical issues here. Okay, it's not just just increasing the number of organ donation, but we need to be concerned also about the ethics of these two systems. Okay, now with regard to your question, it is actually not just relating to bioethics. No, it's more of a general question with regard to accountability with regards to AI. Right now, we are operating under what we call a weak AI, na, wherein basically AI is used as a human instrument. Okay, basically the agents are still humans. Okay, although we can speak of autonomous AI like self-driving cars, na, but then again, they are the rules upon which they play around are still human defined. Okay, human generated. Okay, the fully autonomous AI which we can say to be we can be morally accountable are those will be capable of coming up with their own rules, no, for their own actions. But what I'm trying to say is that right now, okay, there is the so-called many hands phenomenon, meaning there are many who contribute na, to the algorithm, okay, the designers, the implementers, and so on. So it's very difficult actually right now to pinpoint na, who would be responsible for in case there will be harm that will be done, no? As a result of using AI. No? So we need to have a clear line of responsibility here, na? With regard to the algorithms, whether they are biased or not. Okay, so if they are proven to be biased, okay, so the we can say that the people accountable are the programmers. But if they are not biased, but it's in the implementation that is where the problem is. Na? So those people implementing the AI will be the ones accountable. So I think for a general question like that, we need to specify, no, which aspect of the action, because the programming, the implementation, and so on. Okay, so it's really a challenging question right now because of the many hands phenomenon. Many people contribute not to the design and application of AI algorithms. Okay,
Okay. Thank you very
thank you.
much.
Okay. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
that question, Sir Romel. Very interesting question. Parang yung sa movie na Passengers ni Chris Pratt and yun sa Prometheus, yung medical treatment, papasok ka na lang sa, if you watch it, papasok ka sa parang medical uh, capsule tapos pipindutin mo lang yung gagawin sa'yo. So, ang tanong is, sino kayang gumawa nun? Ilang tao or talagang yung mga pinakamagagaling na medical professionals to? If you watch that movie, no? Or others here, if you watch that movie, Prometheus and Passengers, no? It's set in the future and they have all these, you just press the button lang and then gagawin sa, they'll just do the procedure on you. Anyway, we have here a question from Mr. Cueto. So, yeah, Mr. Cueto, again, you can ask Dr. Mabakio your questions. Sige, go ahead.
Hello. Apologies for my background, but hi, Doc. I
Hi.
was your student. I'm a reader of your books too, and ethics and mind, and I couldn't help but um, there's the way I experience the concepts, the taxonomy of the categories. There are lots of rigid delineations to it, which leads me to this discussion whether um, of concerning anthropocentrism versus non-anthropocentrism. Because the way deep ecologists argue of life equivalence in trying to give AI some sort of well-being to it. And this is some sort of response to anthropocentrism. But within that very life equivalence notion of deep ecology, I can't help but see the hidden anthropocentrism within that non-anthropocentrism. And so categories begin to collapse. So I wonder whether anthropocentrism is one thing that we should embrace, and
Okay.
whether how conceptually how we can avoid how we will be able to treat categories so they don't collapse in themselves.
That's actually a paper I'm working on. We have non-anthropocentric approaches to environmental ethics. We have sentientism, okay, the biocentrism, ecocentrism, as against the homocentrism that can be supported by Kantian ethics. But Kantian ethics also has a way of dealing with environmental issues that will not be detrimental to the environment. You're right. Many critics are saying that in the end, these anthropocentric theories are anthropocentric as well. And they have their reasons. But I have a defense for that because not all forms of anthropocentrism are harmful. Okay, for instance, if you're gonna tell me that I'm anthropocentric because I look at nature from my own point of view, okay, because it's my point of view, my perspective that I look at nature. I have my own categories and so on, and then that makes me anthropocentric. And you conclude that that necessarily will lead to my behavior not respecting nature. I don't think that necessarily follows. Okay, I can view things from my own point of view, and yet I can have a certain kind of ethics that would lead me to respect nature. So that kind of anthropocentrism, I think, is harmless. So if that's going to be the argument against these non-anthropocentric theories, I think it can be dealt with well. Okay, so I believe that not all forms of anthropocentrism are harmful. Okay, yeah, that's my answer to that.
Okay,
Thank you, Professor.
good.
I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you.
So I think we have time for about two more questions. Let's have Mr. Alex Henon from PUP.
Hello, Sir Nak. Good afternoon. I am very fond of reading your concept of pakikipagkapwa, no? And I'm also using it as my paradigm to do a kind of work in progress research on pakikipagkapwa in line with existentialismo Filipino. So that's my work in progress research. Now my question is regarding the ethical research, no? And my curious question is, what is now the direction of our ethical research here in the Philippines, given the fact that we are experiencing a lot of political animosities, and at the same time, the challenge of the teaching ethics in the universities and the institutions, where in fact that it's not being given a kind of a high priority. Instead, it is the priority now. It's on how to employ people. Going back to my previous questions, and at the same time, no, to highly to intensify, no, the readiness of students, no, in the corporate fields. So what's now the direction of our ethical research, given the fact that there are so many challenges that we need to address here in our country, specifically now, no, the adding the impeachment trials, adding the flood control problems. So that's my question, sir. Now,
Right. Now, perhaps you are alluding to the idea of some politicians, no, to scrap ethics, no, from college, okay, saying that it's already been taken in the elementary and high school, no, so there will just be a duplication. That's what I consider to be a policy that is not based on sound research. Okay, a while ago I was saying some policies, influence research directions, funding, priorities. But some of these policies are not really based on sound research. Okay, you're correct. If I may use Kant's distinction between acting in accordance with duty and acting out of duty. Are you familiar with that? So they're saying in elementary and high school, we are already being taught good manners. Okay. But that's what I can refer to as acting in accordance with duty, which does not have moral worth for Immanuel Kant, because you are not conscious of why you are doing certain things. You are just being trained to behave in certain ways, which are acceptable to society. But we need to act out of duty in the sense that our action is based on awareness, a realization of what should be the case. Right now, the more we need ethics actually, in college, because of the issues that we are facing with in our country. So it's not going to be solved by teaching children how to behave properly, because when they come face to face with situations which offer opposite alternatives which are equally ethically attractive, how are they going to make a decision which course of action is better? So we need to, ethics is also about making a sound judgment, okay? And of course, that kind of knowledge comes with maturity, okay? So the more mature we become, the more we have the abilities to decipher, evaluate moral situations. So that's a very unfortunate thing. Hopefully, it will not be applied. Okay, that thought that they were thinking of scrapping ethics na in college na. So that will be very disastrous for our country. Yeah.